As a Star Wars fan, it's hard to see the relaunch of the Star Wars franchise in EA's hands. EA chipped away so many of the good things that Battlefront had for it. The evolution was going to be great and it's going to take new steps, but EA's relaunch chipped away a lot of the new steps the originals were making. The first Star Wars Battlefront game was released in 2004, developed by Pandemic Studios and published by LucasArts. At this time, LucasArts thought it was a great idea to have a Battlefield game of their own, but in the Star Wars universe. Now this gave Pandemic the reins of the Star Wars Battlefront franchise as we know it, and they put in a goddamn good amount of work, and they made the game really damn good, at least in my opinion, or else that might be the nostalgia speaking. One of the cool things about this game was that you got to play the battles you'd already seen in the movies, but you could actually change the outcome of who would win and who would lose. One of the big things in this game was that the heroes were not playable, and you had ammunition. Your gadgets were also based on a ammunition-based system, so you couldn't spam grenades and replenish your grenades over time. This game made it so that the heroes were dangerous, you couldn't just fight them straight on, unless you had a grenade and you managed to knock them off the map, which was always really fun to do. This game also introduced a hunt mode and Galactic Conquest, two modes that are pretty damn creative. Well then again, the Galactic Conquest is basically just, you know, a risk board with Star Wars stuff and you can build your armies and attack other systems. Pretty cool anyways. The hunt mode though, very original, and my god it was fun, playing the Ewoks throwing spears and stones into the Imperials, triggering the wooden stocks, the wooden logs, to hit the ATSTs. Oh my god, it was a lot of fun. Playing the Wampas against the Rebels. Ah, great time. And now, the second game in the franchise had a lot of expectations. The first game set the bar really high to what the second game in the franchise could be, and not a long time after, Pandemic and LucasArts showed off yet another great piece of gaming.
The first day of combat for the 501st was nothing like I thought it would be.
Star Wars Battlefront 2, releasing just a year after Star Wars Battlefront 1. 2005, that Christmas was one of the best Christmas of my life. I remember when I got that game and I looked at it, I was like, yes, this is gonna be good. When I popped that sucker into the PlayStation 2 I owned at the time, I was blown away at how much better this game played, how much more detailed the world was, and how much more you could actually do. You could play heroes. That was a huge thing back then. You could play heroes. It felt amazing. Battlefront 2 improved a little bit on the campaign, but it didn't really do a great job. It still did try, but the campaigns of these games have never been its strong point. Battlefront 2 played really smooth with massive multiplayer battles on PC and sometimes even AI in the map, and you could command them around as a player and get them to follow you and run around with you. Now this created a cool dynamic where the battle felt even bigger than what it was players on the field, and it didn't ruin the experience. Now, one of the greatest things about this game, in my opinion, is that when you were a hero, you had to be careful with your force abilities. You couldn't just throw them out here and there willy-nilly. Your force abilities would actually hit your friendly troops as well. And the game even introduced a better Galactic Conquest. It improved on the hunt mode. The game sort of kept the same lobby setup from Battlefront 1, and that didn't really improve that much, but they did improve the general gameplay. Battlefront 2 even added space battles. They removed the normal ground flying vehicles from the ground battles and rather move them to space, where you could fly in, destroy the components of the ship or the corvettes around the ship, or you could board the enemy capital ship and get on board and destroy components from within and have epic gun battles within the enemy ship if you had landed your spawncraft in there, which made the battles even more intense when people landed in your hangar and you had to hold them off from the reactor room. Now, Battlefront 2 was so established and fans were expecting another one, which were going to improve this even more. The next thing that was probably wanted a lot was now to combine space to ground. As the two previous games, one had the ground battles with air vehicles and the second one had air vehicles in space. Fans were waiting for a combination of the two for a grand, epic Star Wars Battlefront 3. But then, disaster struck at the wrong time. And the disaster was that FreeRadical's Battlefront 3 was canned. Pandemic Studios was supposed to make this game, I would imagine, but they were already making LucasArts Mercenaries, which was probably gonna be, why they needed a new developer. But FreeRadical, as far as I could see from this trailer and some of the leaked content that is from Battlefront 3, is that they did take inspiration from the first 2 games.
Palpatine.
Attack!
They did take space to ground and ground to space and everything pretty serious. This actually looked like the multiplayer would be immense and massive, with many players and AI fighting alongside each other, some people on the ground, some people in space, and some people within the capital ships. Not just that, but FreeRadical was actually developing and writing a story for this game, which actually looked pretty interesting, and this would mean that the Battlefront series would start to move into its own sort of Star Wars lore. But this did unfortunately not happen, as the game was canned. The development was from 2006 till 2008, and it's only in the pretty recent time, in the last 5-6 years, that we've started to hear about what happened. But we're not going to take a huge dive into this Battlefront game, which could have been amazing, by FreeRadical. We're going to move over to the real corporate here. We're going to move over to EA and DICE and what they did with the Star Wars franchise and the Battlefront series as a whole, and see what they did to improve this game. When I first saw this EA version of Star Wars Battlefront and how it looked on the trailers and the teasers, I was really excited, and I could almost not hold myself from pre-ordering the game. It's been almost a decade since the last Battlefront game, and this seemed like the perfect solution to all the problems, which was pretty interesting, and it got me really hyped to see what was gonna come, because it looked really damn good just in the teaser. This Battlefront game looked like it would be one of the games that would actually bring Battlefront back in a good way, and bring improvements and new things to the forefront of the Battlefront series. The first game launched in a really weird and a bit confusing manner, at least in my opinion. The game launched with almost no content at all, and even the gameplay itself was very simplified. Becoming a hero or getting a vehicle, you had to find a certain pickup item on the map. These things did not go really well. I mean, for me in the beginning I could accept it, but when you actually fought an ATST and you had any anti-tank capabilities, you felt helpless. What could you do against this ATST except for running away? You couldn't do anything. You had to run. Star Wars Battlefront introduced a Mario 64 gameplay style with the goddamn pickup cookies everywhere, and you had to take them to have any cool equipment with you. They removed the ammunition and they basically made every kind of gameplay aspect really simple. The AT-ATs could no longer be controlled and was set on a rail. To get an airship or to get any kind of vehicle, you'd have to find the pickup for it and use it to actually enter said vehicle. At the time, players were a bit in arms because of this season pass that EA had launched right next to the game. The season pass was the same price as the game and basically had 4 seasons. And this season pass included all the content that would be needed to actually have a finished Star Wars Battlefront game. They didn't even add space battles until the Death Star DLC way down the line. People were angry at this game for some of this practices with the DLC and season passes, but EA thought that it would be a great idea to actually improve this and change some of these practices for the next game. Some of these practices we already know today, and well, the next game in their franchise did not line up perfectly well with what they hoped to do. Players were a bit disappointed with Battlefront and some of its content splitting offers. splitting the player base to PC to almost unplayable numbers. Console at the moment, at the time of this recording, is still very playable. But if you want to have a great Star Wars experience in the Battlefront universe, you should go to the originals. The originals were more based on Battlefield and inspired by Battlefield, and EA recently have said that they didn't want their Battlefront games to feel like Battlefield. And this is probably why the Star Wars games have become a little bit of a weird little oddity around the EA game studios, and their Battlefront 2 released to even more disaster than the first one even did. Now this disaster was so big that you probably even heard about it if you weren't even into Star Wars. And if you weren't into Star Wars and you heard about it, then it's very understandable. EA thought they could save everything with the Star Wars Battlefront franchise by supposedly fixing everything wrong with the first game. They changed the gunplay, they made it a bit more intuitive and more skillful, and now they added loot boxes. In these loot boxes you could have gotten a hold of star cards, which would improve your grenade regeneration faster. So technically a player who had dropped $100 at launch could literally start, killing other newer players easier than other just starting players, as the other player would have grenades and other gadgets coming back faster or higher shields HP. This debacle caused a huge problem for EA and a massive backlash which they deserved, and they sort of smeared Star Wars in the ground and the dirt even, and they tried to fix it. And when they did fix it, I think it was too late. For me, the experience was marred by this loot box hell, and I could not get myself back to playing it. I've tried going back to it since, but it's been such a hard task. The game had content issues as well in the beginning, but it was better than the first game. At least in this game, EA did not decide to split the player base into multiple different season passes and DLC bullshit. Through Battlefront 2, EA managed to keep the community together, but they did also lose a lot of sales due to this huge crisis they had with the loot boxes. One of the things that you always wondered was how you would get heroes in this one, or vehicles, or different characters. Because in the original game, sometimes if you played on, for example, Geonosis, the Geonosians would already be there on the Separatist side, almost like a in-game little add-on to the battle to make it a bit more intense for the attacking team, who had to perform twice as well. In Star Wars Battlefront 2 in 2017, what EA did was that they added a point system, or dice should I say. In Star Wars Battlefront 2, to become a hero you would just acquire points to get a vehicle, or to get a special character, or become a hero. You could be a hero in any era of the Star Wars universe. You could literally play as any kind of hero, even though they would probably be dead in that era you would play them in. People heard that there were loot boxes coming in Battlefront 2, but everyone hoped that those loot boxes would just be cosmetics. But then I remember EA in an interview said that they didn't want a pink Darth Vader because that would break immersion. But the thing that also breaks immersion is when you have people playing characters that shouldn't even be in that era in Star Wars in a battle. That is kind of the same thing, EA. You should learn. Now in the recent times, Battlefront 2 have evolved and become a much better game. The problem is that I haven't gotten myself to play the game because it's so hard for me to sit down and play it, as I'm completely scarred by this experience I had in the launch. The game has evolved, and if you haven't already, you should probably give it a go or a test. Get the Origin Premiere and you can try multiple games from EA and see if it's actually worth it. I'm not sponsored, I just want to say if you do want to give it a go, do it that way so you can save more money and just do 1 month of that instead of spending a lot more on the game. Now the big question is, what is the future of Star Wars Battlefront and the general purpose of the Star Wars games at the EA headquarters? Well, we'll have to take a look at that. Star Wars Battlefront has been one of my favourite games throughout the times, and I will say that the story of Battlefront 2 from 2017 wasn't that bad. The only thing was that they sort of tricked us a little bit. It wasn't just, you know, Imperial view. Then again, I think the future for Star Wars is going to be pretty good. Respawn Entertainment, the people who made Apex, they're making a Star Wars game. That's probably going to be pretty goddamn sick. Also, there's going to be hopefully another Battlefront game. I do hope that EA sort of thinks that it would be nice to make a good Star Wars Battlefront game. I do mean that the first Star Wars Battlefront game they put out was a bit, you know, it was nice. It felt a bit better to play. The second one kind of was a bit wonky and weird in the beginning, and the heroes felt really weak. You know, the heroes should be really strong, EA. Come on, make them really strong. Hopefully you enjoy this little video here. I don't really do these videos that often, so if you did like it, be sure to click a like down below, and maybe I'll see how much I get, and I'll try to make more of these on other games. If you did like it, and you have anything on your mind, be sure to put it in the comments down below. I'd love to read your comments, and I'm gonna probably respond to everyone that comments on this one. Anyways, I'm the Turtle. Hopefully you had a great one, and if you did, be sure to subscribe and maybe share this to a friend. Maybe they'll also enjoy this one. And subscribe to PewDiePie, you goddamn bastards. T-Series can't beat them. Anyways, until next time, bye bye.